My name is Claire, and 3 weeks ago, I gave a stranger something far more valuable than money. I gave him my trust. By the time I realized who he really was, he had already disappeared. But he made one mistake before he left. He forgot that I still had his number. I'm not proud of what happened. Actually, for the first few days, I couldn't even talk about it without feeling stupid. It started the way a lot of bad decisions do. Late at night, scrolling through my phone, convincing myself that maybe, just maybe, I'd finally met someone genuine. His name was Ethan. At least that's what he called himself. We matched online a little over a month ago, and from the beginning, everything felt effortless. We talked every day, sometimes for hours. He remembered little details about my life, asked about my family, my job, and the things that kept me awake at night. And slowly, I let my guard down. I told him things I hadn't even told some of my closest friends. The breakup that had destroyed me a year earlier. The anxiety attacks I'd hidden from everyone. The fear that I was somehow impossible to love. Looking back now, I realized that's exactly what he wanted. Because while I was opening up to him, he was studying me. One night, after weeks of talking, he called me. His voice sounded different. Nervous. He told me he was in trouble. Apparently, his car had broken down 2 hours from home. His bank account had been frozen, and he needed help. He didn't ask immediately. That's what made it convincing. He spent almost an hour apologizing, insisting he'd figure something out himself. And then, finally, he said it. "Could you lend me some money? Just until tomorrow." I wish I could tell you I saw through the lie. I didn't. Because by that point, I trusted him. Without thinking twice, I sent the money. He thanked me over and over again. He promised he'd pay me back the next morning. He even joked about how embarrassed he was. That was the last normal conversation we ever had. The next day, my messages went unanswered. At first, I assumed he was busy. By evening, I started worrying. By midnight, I knew something was wrong. His profile picture disappeared. Then his social media accounts vanished. One by one, every connection between us was gone. Except for one thing. His phone number. I sat there staring at it for almost an hour. Part of me wanted to call him and scream. Another part wanted answers. But mostly, I wanted revenge. For days, I replayed every conversation in my head, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. Had he been lying from the beginning? Did he ever care about anything I told him? Or was I just another person on a list of people he'd manipulated? I talked to my friends. I talked to the police. Everyone told me the same thing. Move on. But I couldn't. Not because of the money. Because of what he'd taken with it. Trust. And once someone steals that from you, getting over it isn't easy. That's when I started noticing strange things. Small details from our conversations that didn't add up. He had once mentioned growing up near the coast, but later claimed he'd never lived anywhere near water. He talked about a younger sister, then later said he was an only child. Even his job stories changed every week. The more I thought about it, the more obvious it became. I had never actually known him. I had known the version of himself that he created. And somehow, that realization hurt more than being scammed. A few nights later, unable to sleep, I opened my contacts and looked at his number again. I could have deleted it. I almost did. But instead, I saved it under a new name. The Lesson. Because that's what he had become. Not a soulmate, not a villain. Just a lesson I learned the hard way. Months have passed since then. I never got my money back. I never heard from him again. And honestly, that might be the part that bothers me the most, not knowing who he really was, not knowing whether anything he said was true? Sometimes, I still wonder if he ever thinks about the people he fooled, if he remembers the stories they shared, if he feels guilty. But deep down, I already know the answer. People like him don't lose sleep over the damage they cause. The people they leave behind do. And maybe that's the cruelest part of all. Because the worst thing he stole from me wasn't money. It was the ability to believe that the next person I meet is telling me the truth.